Hello everyone, thanks for joining us today for our webinar about how to make your online courses accessible to all. First of all, I want to introduce my colleague with you, Dr. David Dawson. He's a clinical associate professor and in the School of Medicine. Also, he's the co-director of South Carolina Center for Assistive Technology and Education Research. And I am Ismahan Arslan Ari. I am an assistant professor of Learning Design and Technologies at the College of Education. I am also the co-director for the South Carolina Center for Assistive Technology and Education Research. And we are providing these webinars with the collaboration with the CDRC and CTE. And with the collaboration with the CDRC, we created a lab, a Student with Disabilities STEM lab. It is a multi-user lab, and if you need any support for your students related to the STEM in your courses or any training, we will be happy to provide any support. And our lab and our office is located inside the Columbia campus. It is just next to the Black Center. It is on Wheat Street, just in the second floor of the Child Bright Horizon. And our center, we established our center in 2018, and we are located, under the College of Education, but it is an interdisciplinary center. I have collaborators from the School of Medicine, Dr. Dawson, and we have another collaborator from the College of Engineering, Dr. Neşet Hikmet. He's not here with us today, but this also shows that we combine different experiences, skills to create this lab, and we try to we try our best to make all the the courses, all the resources to provide the the equal opportunities to the people with and without disabilities. And we also do research, and we are open to any collaboration. If you need any help with us, just you just need to email us, and I will provide our contact information at the end of the webinar. So today we are going to present the tips how to create our online courses accessible. I think this is now more crucial because of the COVID-19 pandemic. Most of us are providing their courses online or the hybrid, and we upload our documents and use the learning management system, the Blackboard. And we want to have the equal access to all the students. We, in our title, we said to all, because even though in this presentation I mainly say students with disabilities, the visual impairments, but still there are some students, they also need some modifications in the online courses, who are the international students, and those students, their mother language is not English, so they might still need the support. Also, some students, they have audio preference, or they need some support in their courses. So we need to consider everybody while we are designing our online courses. And I would like to start with a definition of accessible, because when we say accessible, it means different to everybody. Especially when we say accessible in online courses, people always think that the accessible is, that you can, for example, download the document. This is accessible, but the definition I will read that is on the I will read that is on the slide is from the recent settlement agreements between the U.S. Department of Education, Office of Civil Rights, and the Institution of Higher Education. And it says accessible means a person with a disability is afforded the opportunity to acquire the same information, engage in the same interactions, enjoy the same services as a person without a disability, in an equally effective and equally integrated manner, with substantially equivalent ease of use. And the person with a disability must be able to obtain the information as fully equally and independently as a person without a disability. And as you can see, understand from that definition, just providing the documents is not enough for the students to access, especially when we consider the students with visual impairments, because they need to use assistive technologies such as the screen readers to access the content. And my first tip is adding accessibility statements about the course and content to your syllabus and the course homepage. And now I will read you a sample statement. It doesn't have to be exactly the same, but I also suggest if you are in different the campus of the University of South Carolina, I also suggest to check with them if they have any statements related to the accessibility. In the Columbia campus, we have a statement for the disability services, but I was not able to locate so far about the accessibility statement, but I am sure that Digital Accessibility Office they currently established, I am sure that they are working on such statements to make all the courses accessible to all. And this sample statement says University of South Carolina has made a commitment to ensure the accessibility of the online courses for all students. If you locate content in this course that is not accessible, please let me know immediately so that we can determine if there is a design adjustments that can be made or if an accommodation might be needed to overcome the limitations of the design. If you add this statement to your course, it will also give an opportunity to the students to reach you out, so you can make any modifications, and it will also give the students the feeling that they are important and you are working to make your courses as accessible as you can. I know most of you are very busy, and if you are especially new to the online courses, sometimes it might not be possible to make all your course content accessible. But if you include that statement, the students who need some justifications or who are having difficulty in accessing your course content, you can make those adjustments and then make all those course content accessible, trying to find the ways for those students. And another statement that I want you to add is the disability services statement. And you can also that statement should include the information to the students with disabilities, what they need to do if they have any disabilities and needs modification. And some students might not be aware of the university resources and support provided to them. So this information will help them to contact with the student disabilities resources. And I will read the statement provided by the Student Disabilities Resources to include in your course syllabus, and it has two versions. And in the shorter version, it says, any student with a documented disability should contact the Student Disability Resource Center at 777-6142 to make arrangements for appropriate accommodation. Or, I prefer the longer version in my courses because it has more information. And in the longer version, it says students with disabilities. The University of South Carolina provides high quality services to students with disabilities, and we encourage you to take advantage of them. Students with disabilities needing academic accommodations should register with and provide documentation to the Student Disability Resource Center in the closed-hip suite 102 and discuss with the instructor the type of academic and physical accommodations you need. Please do this as soon as possible. All course materials are available in alternative format upon request. So this statement also provides information to the students, and even though you make some changes, modifications in your online course to make all the content accessible, some students still need some other accommodations, such as increasing the test time. So those type of things, you can suggest them to provide their documentation to the Student Disability Resource Center, so they will tell you the type of accommodations they need. Okay, when it comes to the layout and organization of your online courses, first tip is adding a video and text to explain how to navigate through the course. This video would include the overview of your online course. You should briefly explain how you organize the course content, how to access the course content, announcements, resources, or office hours, and how to submit their assignments, how to take the quizzes. And this video is useful for them to familiarize themselves how they can navigate the course. And this video should be preferably on the course homepage, and you can include as a reminder, as a review in your first module or any startup page. It depends on how you organize your courses. And my second tip on the layout and organization is, if your course has several modules, organize each module in consistent way. And Blackboard offers different tools to organize your course content, the modules, or you can create the folders. So it is up to your preference, but make sure that your organization is consistent. And also use simple page structure, which is consistent from page to page. And for example, in your module agenda, you can first provide the overview of the course module, learning objectives, description of each learning activities and evaluation activities. And if you present your module this order in module 1, I suggest you to keep that the same format in module 2 while presenting content. And this it is helpful to organize, this predictability helps many students navigate the course and make it less likely that they will miss an important activity. And it will also help the students who use the screen readers to navigate through the course. Since they need to use the tab key on the keyboard, so they don't need to click the tab trying to find the information they are looking for, because sometimes they cannot complete the whole module in one sitting, so they need to go back and come back again. And if they are the screen readers, they need to click the tab button to find the place that they stop. Maybe they finished the assignment 1, but they need to try to find the assignment 2 explanations. So the consistency is very important. And the third one is be sure to choose a color scheme with sufficient contrast colors. For example, dark colored text on a light colored plain background, or light colored text on a dark colored plain background. And low contrast and patterned backgrounds will be inaccessible to the attendees with low vision. You can use color contrast checker to make sure whether your choice is accessible. And I suggest you 2 color contrast checker, and you can click on the links to access to those checkers. The first one is the color contrast checker analyzer free tool. You can download your computer. It is free, and you just need to pick the colors, from your presentation or from your courses page that you created, and it gives you the report if it is accessible, it meets the requirements of accessibility. And the second one is another good online tool, but this one is also good, but I prefer the first option, the free tool that you can download, because you don't need to enter the color code to see if the color contrast meets the requirements, because you just need to use the picker tool to pick the color on your screen. And another one is related to the discussions. Most of us use discussions, right, in our courses. At least we use it for questions, students' question and answers. Discussions sometimes hard for the screen readers to navigate, especially if it doesn't include descriptive subject headings. So I suggest you to encourage students to use meaningful title for the discussion posts. Also, you should use the descriptive subject headings, but here I want to focus on the students' encouragement, because sometimes students just type one word which is not descriptive as a heading. So you can inform the students that their subject headings should be specific and descriptive. For example, if you have a question and answer area, sometimes just the students write question as a heading. But if you're a screen reader, when they click the tab, when it comes to that, the discussion post, it just says question, but it doesn't describe what type of question it is inside that question post, discussion post. So instead of saying question, they can write, for example, question for analysis reports. It is more descriptive, and the students, who use the screen readers understand even any others. Let's see the next one. The accessible text. Related to accessible texts, use sans serif fonts such as Arial, Calibri, Verdana, which are easily readable. But commonly the Arial fonts are suggested for documents accessed online, because using the sans serif fonts is especially important for students who use screen magnifiers. If the font is serif, then the font will break apart when it is magnified. So you want to be sure that you use a sans serif font type. And you should limit the use of the font variations, such as bold, italics, and all capitals. Also, do not use more than 3 text font types on the same page. And you should avoid underlining text, and it should be reserved for hyperlinks. Your font size should be big enough to be read from small screens. It should be at least 12 points for documents. However, recommended font size is 24 for PowerPoints if you are presenting during your synchronous video conferences. Okay, any questions? Okay. And the next tip is you should not use colors to emphasize the texts. Although colors are helpful and preferred by the students with learning or cognitive disabilities and visual learners, it is accessible for the students with visual impairments. So especially, the low visions, they cannot distinguish it, and the color blinds. If you use red, green, and they cannot read or recognize and miss some of the information. And use software or LMS built-in features. The LMS is the Learning Management System. It is Blackboard for the University of South Carolina. And you need to use the built-in feature to create your table, column, and lists. Sometimes the instructors use the tab or space buttons to create the 2 columns. But when they use the tabs and spaces in the screen reader, it reads from left to right, and in the column the screen reader starts reading from the first line of the first column, then moves to the first line of the second column that they create, but it is not the column style. So I suggest you to use the built-in feature. It is the one on the menu bar of your Word, or it also has in your, if you create the, the content in the Blackboard, it also provides this option in the menus. And for your list, use bullets and numbering for pre-formatted lists instead of typing or adding symbols to create your own list structure. And I am sure that most of you are also using images, charts, graphs, and their accessibility is also important. If you use images or graphics, add alternative text to all your graphics and images. And this alternative text provides a description of the image for screen reader users. And while the alt text provides what the image is, use image description to provide details. For example, if that description is not enough to provide the detailed information, okay, for example, for the graphs, you need to describe it, you need to use the descriptions, and these descriptions can be provided, it depends on the, the allowance of the length. If it is more than 120 words, so you can provide this as a separate text document, so they can just click on and read the description. And it is also better not to use the decorative images, and decorative images in the background is acceptable as long as it doesn't affect the readability of your text. And for your decorative images, add the national symbol for null. It is a beginning and end codes. This tells the screen readers and assistive technologies to skip that image without reading. And I also suggest you to avoid using the access animation or flashing images, so because they are not accessible. Okay, when it comes to using the links, you should use meaningful and descriptive links names. And when I say the meaningful and descriptive, just think that when you read it out of the context, it should make sense when you read it. For example, click here. When you read the click here, without, when you read it out of the context, it doesn't make any sense. It doesn't tell us what the students will locate when they follow those links. So also the same, email me. Instead of writing email me, you can add your email address and add the hyperlink on that email address. Also the URL text, it is not descriptive because it just provides the URL text and the screen reader just read it as it is. Instead, just write a descriptive wording and provide the link. And I will answer the questions at the end. Okay, I can see it in the chat, but and accessible videos and audios. If you use audio only, like podcast or audio lecture, provide text transcript for audio. And if you have videos, provide the captions. I know it takes time to add the captions to your videos, but there are automated captioning tools. The basic one, I think it is pretty accurate. The YouTube has an audio captioning option, and after you upload it, sometimes it takes time that automated captioning appears on your videos. But after it appears, you can go and edit it. So if you see any, you can listen and make the edits if it doesn't, recognize correctly. And also Microsoft Stream also have auto captioning feature, and I don't know which video conferencing tool you use in your courses, but the Microsoft Teams also has the, the captioning option. So I suggest you to try it, which one works better for you. In our center, we use YouTube auto captioning, and Okay, another important point is the accessible tables. And you add your tables as plain text, not as an image. Sometimes the instructors just get the screenshot of the tables from the different resources, from the textbook, or from the Word file, and just paste it on their, the files in the course, online course, but it is not accessible for the screen readers. It just says image, and you should avoid using the image, add your tables as an image. So just use the insert table option, built-in feature of the Blackboard, or if you use the Word, you need to create the table in the Word, PowerPoint, or HTML. So you need to create the table as a plain text, and avoid using table just for visual appeal. Sometimes, to divide the pages in different sections, instructors use the tables, and this is not accessible. When you create the table, you should add the headers to your columns and rows to make sense for the students who are using the screen readers. And the reading of a table for English is left to right and top to bottom. And while creating the table, consider the reading order of the screen reader. And to verify the table reading order, you can press your tab key on the keyboard to move across the cells. Then you can read to yourself and just think this makes sense, without seeing the table. And the last suggestion for the table is please do not merge cells or leave cells blank, because the screen reader users cannot access to that information provided in that table correctly. Screen readers can read it, but it messed up the order. Okay, we should provide accessible documents in our courses, and most of us also using the different documents. The Word, PowerPoint, PDFs are the common ones. So in addition to the tips that I provided so far, I will also provide specific tips for your documents, different types of documents. And if possible, even though you can make your Word, PowerPoint, PDFs accessible, if possible, use HTML files, because it is the most accessible file format for the screen readers. And for Word files, use styles to add the headers. And all heading styles should be in the correct order: header 1, header 2, header 3. And the image on the slide shows the screenshot of a Word document. And there is a menu ribbon across the top. And I have a red line on the front menu, which indicates do not use the font style to create the structure on your Word documents. Those are the font size, bold, or italics for visual appeal, since they are not accessible to assistive technologies. Instead, use the styles from the styles menu and on the Word ribbon bar. And in that, it is presented in my screenshot on the slide. It is presented in a red rectangle on the screenshot, and in this screenshot there are seven buttons to choose the style, but there is a small drop down arrow menu on the right bottom, and when you select this menu, it expands the styles list, so you can choose different styles, and you can even modify your styles. It just needs some practice to learn. And after you create your accessible Word documents, you can still save it as a PDF after you check the accessibility. And another document we usually provide is the PowerPoints. The most important part of PowerPoint accessibility is the use of pre-approved accessible templates. If you don't feel comfortable to create to make modifications on the template, I suggest you to look at the Microsoft website. They provide accessible templates, so you can pick one of them and include your content. And when adding the new slides, use slide layouts. Using the template and slide layouts ensure information on the slides have the correct heading structure and reading order. And heading structures and reading orders make it much easier for screen reader users to read and navigate the presentation. It also reduces the risk of screen readers from reading the content out of order or not reading the content at all. Although we don't suggest adding text boxes on the PowerPoints, if you need to add text boxes which are not part of the slide layout, make sure that you check the reading order of the content. Screen readers read the text boxes last, so you might need to work on the reading order on your slides. And when the presentation has animations and slide transitions, screen readers might reread the slides a couple times, so it is better to avoid using them. And you can check the accessibility of your Word and PowerPoint files. Microsoft Office has also Office 365 has a built-in accessibility checker. To check, you need to click on the file on the top of your menu ribbon and select info and check for issues, and you need to pick the check accessibility from that drop-down menu. And on this slide, the screenshot of this menu presented this pad, and after you check the accessibility, it provides you an accessibility report. And in the report, if you click on the items, it also tells you how to fix it, so you can easily follow the steps to make it more accessible. Okay, and we use PDFs in our online courses, right? Maybe this is one of the most, the one document type that we use in our courses, and sometimes we download them to different databases, maybe the library databases, the journal articles, or sometimes we need to scan the files from the book, and especially until the students have an access to their textbooks, we might need to scan the first the chapters of the textbook to provide them the readings in the first module. But unfortunately, scanned PDFs might not be accessible because the scanned documents can be treated as an images or the searchable PDFs. And most of the time, if you did not select the option of making the creating the readable documents, then it is treated as an images. And to make it to ensure that it is accessibility, your PDF file should be searchable for the screen readers to read the text. And to understand this, after you scan your file, to understand this, you can try to select and copy the text from your PDF file. And if you cannot, your PDF file this means your PDF file was recognized as an image. And but this is not the end of the world. The Acrobat Reader has a scan OCR tool to create the readable PDFs from scanned documents. And Adobe Acrobat Reader also has an accessibility checker, like the Microsoft Word and PowerPoint. After you run the report, it also tells you it meets the accessibility requirements. If not, it also provides the detailed information. And in the accessibility PDFs, if you want to create, the tags are important. And because of the limited time in that webinar, I was not able to, I cannot give the details on that one. But if you go to that link, the Acrobat provides lots of webinars, and in that link takes you to the webinars, specifically related to the accessible PDFs, and you can pick the ones which meet your requirements. You can watch that one. And in that slide, there are two images. The first one on the left one shows the accessibility checker icon that you can access from the tools in your Adobe Acrobat. It is free, and you click on the accessibility, that icon. So it will give you the menu, and in that menu you need to click on the accessibility, full accessibility checker. Then it will provide you the report. And the right image shows the scan and OCR tool icon, and when you click on it, it takes some time, depends on the length of your PDF file, but it creates the readable PDFs. But just creating the readable PDFs does not mean that your PDFs are accessible. After running that scan and OCR tool, you still need to go and check your accessibility of your PDFs, because most of the time the images are not going to have the alt text, or the reading order is going to be the reading order might be the messed up, so you might need to change and correct those. Okay, I also want to mention the accessibility of the synchronous video conferencing. I don't know how many of you use the video conferencing or synchronous lectures in your courses, but at least you might have the office hours, online office hours, or you might need to meet with your students synchronously to explain something. And first thing is you should speak clearly, because this is important for all the students to understand you, especially in the online environments. There might be some technical issues, the voice issues. Also, you might have students, whose mother language is not English, so they need to understand. When you speak clearly, they will understand what you say. And also, please use simple language, because the students with learning disabilities, cognitive disabilities, again, the students whose language is not English is not their first language, they need to understand you. And also, you should give some time for the students to process the information. It will also help them, to ask any questions that need to, ask. And then you give some time to the students to process information, and this will also give the time for the students with physical disabilities to to access to maybe the audio chat, the chat feature, whichever you use to get your questions from the students, to access those features to ask their questions. And another thing is you need to be visible in the camera. And I know students don't like to turn on their cameras, but as a teacher, you can encourage them, but as a teacher you should be visible on the camera, especially if there are any students with hearing impairments. They might be reading the lip, so you need to be visible, especially your face needs to be visible so they can read your lips. And another one is be mindful on your background when possible. Again, it is important for the students who reads the lips. Also, if there are any clusters in the background, it might, distract the students during the class time. They might find the background distracting. And another thing is, most of us sometimes, use the visual backgrounds. But the visual backgrounds, it is okay. But if you, during your class, if you need to show something, for example, if you are in your class, if you are showing, for example, this pen and explain, just the color or, the function of this one, in the virtual backgrounds, it cannot recognize this one. The only thing they are going to see is the virtual background. Okay. Okay, and you should avoid timed response activities in your video conferencing. I am sure that most of you might not like that suggestion, but such activities are hard for the students with visual impairments and physical disabilities, because they need to visual impairments, students, they need to use the screen readers, and it takes time to access to the the chat or the pool. And the physical disabilities, they might be slow to reach out those tools. So please be mindful while using the timed response activities, and the students, you might want to contact with your students to just check if it is okay for them to use it. It will be accessible. If there is going to be any issue, then if you don't have any students who have any barriers to use the response activities, it is your decision. And also, in your video conferences, you need to describe all your visuals. I don't know if you realize it, but in my presentations, I try to explain most of all my visuals on the screen, just in case if you need any explanations, especially for the people with visual impairments, we need to explain those visuals. Also, I suggest you to check the closed caption feature of your video conferencing tool. And if you have any students with visual impairments or English as a second language learners, they need to use not the visual impairments, the hearing impairments. They need to use the closed captions. And for example, the Microsoft Teams, it has the closed captions, and each participant can turn it on. And the Zoom also has the live closed captions, and they can just download. So you can just be mindful on the closed caption. And I know you cannot know all your the students, but at least if needed, you can use it, or you can add a statement telling that if they need the closed captions, they need to contact with you, so you can provide the information to your students. And this is all my content for today. So now I can take the questions. So just give me some time to see your questions.
Yeah, we have two right there. From Kelly, one is there a way to change your default settings to a larger font? It always reverts to 14 point rather than, and it's rather small.
So Kelly, are you talking about the larger font in the default set in the Blackboard or in your Word file? So if you are talking about the styles, you can definitely make those modifications. In Blackboard, yes, you can change. In the menu, in the menu ribbon, you can change the font type, font style. It has the menu item, menu ribbon, like you have in the Microsoft Word.
And the second one there is, how would you go about when there's a graph that a student needs to interpret for the quiz without giving away the answers or the description? That's a good one.
Yes, actually, this is one of the hard thing, for most of the instructors. For the graph, I think it still needs some practice, but you should try to just explain the visual, without interpreting, the graph. For example, instead of saying, uh, for example, instead of saying in the bar, in the graph, you can just say there are two bars, and the first one is, you should not say shorter, longer, or they spent more, less. You just need to say it shows this number. And the other one, you can say, while describing, you can say it shows this number, but you should not make the interpretation. I know it is hard, but in the graphs, when you give in the quizzes, you need to just describe the visual. Don't think as a graph, as an interpretation. Maybe I know it is hard, but you need to think like like a child, maybe the first grader who cannot understand the interpretation of the graph, and just describe what you see. No interpretation. And since that description is going to take more space than 120 words. So I suggest you to create a text file and include all your descriptions over there. But if you are providing this description in your course as a content, you need to also provide the interpretation to teach them, but not in the quiz. This is one of the hard part, I know. Any other questions?
Again, remind everyone that if you want a copy of the PowerPoint, please let us have your email.
Yes. And I know, the most of you might think that, oh, there are lots of things to make our online courses accessible and we don't have any support. So my suggestion to you is maybe you can start adding the course syllabus statements, accessibility statements in your syllabuses or in your online course. Then you can start from the easiest one, and every time you make the changes, then at the end, it might take time, but you can see that your course is accessible. Maybe you can start from adding the alt text to your images, okay, and then you can go and use the styles, using the headers to structure your text, your content. And for the videos, sometimes the instructor said it takes time to captioning. I think it was in California. There's one university, I forgot the name, sorry, but they had the statement saying that if you need the video captioning, captions, so they include in their accessibility statement and say, please contact with me, so I will provide you the access, the captions for you. And they suggested that statement just for the courses and for the videos that you specifically use just for one time in your course. Most of the time it is my welcome video, because every semester I at the beginning of the course I provide the the welcome video to my students, and it changes every semester and I use it once. So but for your longer lessons, lectures, so it will be helpful for you to add the captioning. And YouTube is definitely, it is pretty easy, and if you can find other tools, this is also fine. Just suggestion. Okay, in my asynchronous online course, like to use pop-up questions to keep my students engaged, but it is better not to do this for us. Yes, unfortunately, pop-up windows, the pop-up questions is not accessible, but it depends on how you ask it. Maybe your pop-up questions, if it is not open in the pop-up window, you can include that pop-up question on the slide, okay? Then instead of giving the time, okay, maybe you can ask your or some students can respond during the class time, and for all your other students, you can ask them to send the question, the answer to you through email or through the Blackboard, whichever you prefer. But it should not be timed, and you should not grade it. So, but during the class time, you can still, ask the questions to keep them engaged.
Okay, we got another question.
Okay. If I need face-to-face support on improving my online course design, where should I go? You should go to your the Center for Teaching Excellence. First, ask them, if they can help you. Any other questions? Or sometimes, I think they already started the some colleges, they have their own staff to help to make their courses on online courses accessible, and digital accessibility office. They started to find the representative of their office in each the college. So maybe you can also check if you have any representative at your college, so they will provide and they will help.
I noticed that Susan Quinn is on. Any other suggestions, Susan? Would you offer?
Actually, before I start typing, my other suggestion just would be to work with the coordinator at SDRC, at Disability Resource Center, because that student may have a preference for something that works well for them, and that way things can be consistent among all the different courses that student is taking.
Good point. Thank you.
Thank you, Susan. Any other questions? And if you will have any questions, you can reach me from my email address. So I will be happy to help you and answer your questions. And I also type my email address in the chat box. It is arslana@mailbox.sc.edu. And again, if you need the recording or of that webinar, please type your email address. So